Guys, girls, we're back. And we are one day away from the start of the NFL season. It's Wednesday, September 3rd. As I record this, we have two team previews remaining. And I'm very excited to get done with this so that we can feel like we are 1 minute closer to the start of the NFL season. Again, my name is Chris Farley. Farley Bets on X, two-time Circuit Contest winner the last 3 years, hit at 54% for plus 23 units in the NFL last season. Very much looking forward to this season. My first season on Substack, giving away all my plays here. Become a free subscriber and you'll still get plenty of insight. But if you want all of my plays, become a paid subscriber today. And I can even work with you if you would like a discount. The next team to talk about is the Tennessee Titans. And when you think about the Titans, you obviously think about Cam Ward, the number one, easy for me to say, overall draft pick from the Miami Hurricanes. Great quarterback in college, obviously, but went up in the rankings before the draft because of his poise, his mentality, his maturity. On and off the field, the kid has said the right things. He's looked, poised, like it's not too much for him when he played in the preseason. So there's not a lot not to like about Cam Ward. Has some obvious athleticism and running ability there too. But this is an offense that I still think will be the bane of this team's existence unless Cam Ward can pull off a Jaden Daniels type of situation, which we know how rare that is, right? Like I had the data in front of me at one point, but it is a very small number of rookie quarterbacks who have led their teams to the playoffs in their first season with that team. You have to be very, very special. And you probably have to be in a very special situation on top of that, right? I would argue Jaden Daniels is so incredibly outlier-ish because I don't think his situation in Washington was ideal. And yet he still took his team to the playoffs in his rookie season, still went to the NFC Championship game. So a lot is on Cam Ward here as they look to him wearing the number one on his jersey to usher in a new era for Tennessee. Defensively, they're pretty darn good, but we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so their offense was bottom five or worse in every major category last season, except for third down conversions. They were 20th, and red zone scoring, they were 24th. Still not very good. Below average across the board. Poor running game, 31st in giveaways and penalties. So Brian Callahan, who comes from a background where he was with the Cincinnati Bengals for many years as their offensive coordinator and pass game coordinator, not really translating here yet in Tennessee. Now, remember, Mike Vrabel used to coach this team, right? And to me, when Vrabel left, that was one of the most mystifying firings of an NFL coach I've ever seen in like NFL history, because Mike Vrabel is clearly a guy who can get the team going, motivated, a defensive-minded guy. I think they wanted more pizzazz, more offense in Tennessee. So they bring over Brian Callahan. And it's just really tough to know how sharp of a coach he is because he was with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, right? And we know Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, especially, like that trio, but especially Burrow, adds an element to a team where like they could win at any point. They can go to the Super Bowl as they did in Joe's first real season starting for them. But how much of that is Joe, right? Now they have the number one pick in Cam Ward. Again, a lot on this kid's shoulders. But the downside is Tony Pollard is still their number one running back, and he hasn't shown us much. I believe he's either in his upper 20s or 30 at this point. So it's not like he's a spring chicken anymore either. We know the shelf life of running backs doesn't go as far as other players. The wide receiver room, in my opinion, is one of the most shallow in the NFL. Tyler Lockett, who they signed, is 32, and he's never been physically imposing, right? He's more of a solid route runner and, sticky hands, like great veteran wide receiver, but I don't know how much separation he's getting at this point. And then, of course, Calvin Ridley is their number one guy. Played well last season, 16 yards per catch, but not sure if he's a true number one. And then their tight end room is a bunch of names you've never heard of. Now, significant offensive line upgrades the last two seasons. Right guard Kevin Zeitler is really their only consistent guy so far, though. But they have put a lot of draft capital and money into this unit. So it remains to be seen, but high upside here. Again, if they can get that run game going, utilize Cam Ward's athleticism and moxie out there, which he's already shown it. Like in the preseason, I don't think he's afraid. Like he does have a Jaden Daniels type mentality. How it's going to translate on the field and what his pure talent looks like once we get into a game like week 1 at Denver is going to be significantly tested. Now, their defense was able to limit teams in yardage, 8th in opponent yards per play and 3rd in opponent yards per game last season. And they were fantastic against the pass, 1st in pass yards allowed per game, 5th in yards per pass. Now, I do have to say, some of this probably has to do with the fact that they're in the AFC South, right? Even CJ Stroud with the Texans, he doesn't have great protection, right? A very shaky offensive line. That remains the case this season. And then you got Jacksonville, who, we'll see. And then, of course, you have the Colts, who, again, we'll see. And they had a very questionable quarterback room last season, too, at least until Joe Flacco came around. But Joe Flacco's 40 years old. So, the Titans were set up to be a great pass defense because of their opponents. But credit should be given to this team and first-time defensive coordinator Denard Wilson. He did a really good job with this unit last year, overperformed. They're also as good as they were against the pass. They were awful on 3rd downs and in the red zone. So when they needed it most is when they had issues. So that's something that they're going to have to shore up. They have a great interior line. Jeffrey Simmons has been one of the best nose tackles for a very long time. Devondre Sweat is also an up-and-coming player that flashed a few times last season. They paid for linebacker Cody Barton in free agency to come over. Pretty good linebacker, not elite by any stretch, at least not so far, but certainly adds a veteran presence and skill to that front seven. Above average secondary for sure. Now, L'Jarius Sneed, who only started 5 games last season and has been dealing with knee issues, is scheduled to suit up in week 1 at Denver. And that's a secondary that has a lot of talent. So that's kind of the anchor of their defense, along with that interior part of their defensive line. And they did a good enough job last season, just really have to step up in those crucial situations on 3rd downs and in the red zone. But, first-time defensive coordinator, overperformed, plenty of talent. I feel better about their defense than I do their offense. Their schedule overall, very easy, according to my power ratings. And they have the NFC West, which isn't easy, I get that, but you do have Vegas in there, like that helps. I'm sorry, the AFC West. And then they have the NFC West as well, so not particularly easy, right? You got Arizona, Seattle, maybe the 2 teams that you'd want to face more than San Francisco and the Rams. But then, of course, they're in the AFC South, which leaves plenty of opportunity. And the other outlier teams they face are New England, Cleveland, and New Orleans. I don't know if you could pick a better trio of, at least last season, bottom feeder teams to face and possibly win, possibly beat this season, right? Like Cam Ward could come in there. He could beat the Patriots. He could beat the Browns, and he could surely beat the Saints. Hey, not the easiest schedule as far as the NFC West and the AFC West section of their schedule goes, but everything else is very doable. Even, I would say, against the Texans, divisional game. This is a good defense. Houston's offensive line has some real issues. So there's a window here. And if you look at their win total, the 5.5 is juiced to the over. Like odds makers, sharp bettors, like the Titans to overperform again and exceed expectations. And this was a 3-14 operation last season, so tied for the worst record in the NFL. Not too much to believe in. Of course, they didn't really have a quarterback either. Now they do with Cam Ward, some guy that they can feel at peace that at least their future, they can see it coming into fruition now. But again, when the defense is there, but there's not a lot of talent on offense, and the offensive line is questionable, that leaves a ton of pressure on Cam Ward to lead this team. And although the kid has shown a lot, again, you have to be a very, very special player to lead a team with the way this roster is composed to a exceptional season, right? I would still lean to the under. This is still a very new operation. 1 or 2 injuries, especially on defense, is going to really hurt this program. For what it's worth, my buddy Ryan Reynolds, who I really respect his NFL opinions, he likes this team to impress and surprise other teams this season. I believe he likes their over 5.5. He even likes if there's he mentioned this, so I don't think he would mind me saying this, that if there's a major injury or something goes awry in the AFC South, that the window is wide open for this team to make some noise. And they have a really tough starting schedule, right? The first few weeks are really tough. After that, maybe you wait a few weeks and maybe you bet on their win total. Then maybe you get a 4.5, or 5.5. That's much better odds to the over. Again, I lean under for this team. It's such a new operation, but they're interesting. I think they could be a really good ATS team, like surprise, get some terrible spreads, some very disrespectful spreads, like +7, +8, things like that. And then Cam Ward and a capable defense can take care of business as far as covering the spread. That's how I would look at them this year. No other bets, just lean to their under. And last but not least, we have one more team left, the Washington Commanders.